If you've never had verjus before, let me tell you, it is so good. Non is one of those groundbreaking producers that's incorporating verjus into their non-alcoholic products. Non is based in Melbourne, Australia, and they've been growing like crazy in Asia and the Southern Hemisphere, but they just debuted in the US. Let me tell you, it is so good. I tried it last weekend and I'm obsessed now, and I had to share it with you all today. So stick around to find out how it tastes right here on Drycraft. If you've never had verjus before, let me tell you, it is so good. It's one of those interesting ingredients that was traditionally used for cooking, but now these innovative producers like Non have transformed it into something sippable. By adding fruits and spices, it now can take the place of wine when you're having a meal. Okay, so Non was created by this guy named Aaron Trotman. In 2018, he was traveling through Europe with his wife, who doesn't drink, and they were going through all these tasting menus. And they ended up traveling around Paris and London, but around that time, something started to click. And in London, they went to this place called the Clover Club, where they had a tasting menu. His wife got the non-alcoholic pairings, and he got the alcoholic. But he kept stealing sips from his wife's pairings, and he realized there's something here. These things taste really good. When he returned to Melbourne, he went around to more tasting menus, and he thought to himself, well, hey, why do I have to have a $250 meal just to get one of these really sophisticated mocktails? And so, using his cosmetics background, he was able to start developing some prototypes with a chef that he was working with. They were working on a cosmetic product that was going to incorporate some tea pairings to it. And so he said to the chef, hey, I have this idea. And the chef said, yeah, I can do that. And so 3 days later, they had some prototypes. They iterated on it, I think it was around 30, 40 times, and they came up with their first non-1. They shopped it around to some high-end restaurants in Melbourne, and it was really successful. They had an order straight away. And so from there, they grew. Now, Non, as I said, is a verjus-based drink. Verjus, if you aren't familiar with it, is a juice that's pressed from underripe fruit. Now, it can be made from apples or grapes, but normally it's grapes. So if you go to a vineyard and they're growing grapes for wine, they'll usually cut about 20 to 30% of their grapes. And they do this because they want the grapes on the vine to develop even more sugars. That helps with the fermentation process to produce the alcohol. But these underripe grapes that they cut, not all the wines actually press them into verjus, but some of them do. And when they do, it's this really, really acidic and tart juice. Verjus is a combination of two French words, vert, which means green, and jus, which means juice. Therefore, verjus is green juice. Very, very tart, highly acidic. Now, when you get this acidic liquid, it's normally bottled very quickly to prevent fermentation. And then you can use it in salad dressings. They use it a lot in making mustard. But now, producers like Non are adding additional things to it to give it a more pleasant, sippable taste, almost like you would be drinking an apple cider vinegar-based drink. And so Non has incorporated fruits, herbs, tea, and other ingredients to give it that complexity. So when you have wine, you typically have a few different flavors that you're going for. You've got the floral qualities, you've got the salinity and minerality, you've got the tannins, and then you've got the acid. And it's the right balance of these that makes wine so sippable. And so they've aimed to recreate that here in Non. So even though they're trying to recreate it in Non, it doesn't mean that they're creating a de-alcoholized wine. Non never goes through a fermentation process. And instead, they're creating a beverage that's really meant to suit the wine occasion. And, sometimes when you have a de-alcoholized wine, it can be triggering for some people. And for others, they feel like the de-alcoholized wine just has all of its guts removed, in the words of Aaron himself. And so they wanted to create something that was truly meant to be consumed in the state that it is here. So they add fruits that are dehydrated so you can get some of that caramelized flavor and even more deep complexity. They add some tea for tannins. They add other ingredients too beyond that to give it some additional special qualities. So this one, let's take a look what's in it. The NON3 contains Valencia oranges that were dehydrated and caramelized, Sri Lankan cinnamon, Japanese yuzu that's also dehydrated and caramelized, as well as some Murray River salt. Now this is one of their most popular flavors. I gave it a try last weekend when I was visiting LA. I dropped by Soft Spirits and they had it there, so I said, okay, I have to pick this up. And it was so good, let me tell you. I'm obsessed now. So let's pop this open and give it a taste. Let me tell you, this is so good. It's got this really interesting quality on the nose. So people often say that verjus has a lot of like apples on the nose. And you can definitely get kind of the apple kind of flavor here in the bouquet. And then you can smell a little bit of the yuzu and a little bit of minerality as well. The color is kind of light golden, pale color, which is pretty natural for verjus. And then you can notice that there aren't that many tears, which means that there isn't a high sugar content here. And so when you taste it, it's got a lot of tartness, but then it's balanced by the salinity, and then you get a lot of the cinnamon, but it's not overpowering like a sangria or anything like that. It's just a very nice, subtle cinnamon flavor. It does have a little bit of like mild citrus in there. It smells really good. I could almost just like smell this all the time, to be honest. It's like a really light perfume almost. But yeah, I really enjoy this. I could sip on this all day, to be honest. It's not super sweet at all. It reminds me honestly of a really nice white, but more on the acidic side. So if you don't like acidic wine, this is not for you. But if you're open to something new that doesn't really have that exact wine experience, then this is definitely for you. Some people might compare this to kind of like Acid League, but in my opinion, Acid League has some really complex and maybe a little bit challenging flavors for everyday palates, but this one is much more accessible. And I think just a wider population of people would enjoy drinking this compared to the Acid League. So I encourage you to give it a try and let me know what you think.